Alright guys, welcome to the third episode of Below the Bar.
In this episode, expect to find out why I think CrossFit is a cult, how their CEO got cancelled,
And what we think about the transgender athlete debate.
let's get into it. And we're back.
Back in, this week's topic is a lot more light-hearted than the last two have been.
Well, you say that.
Well,
but
true. Eddie's here to bring the negativity today.
You vastly underestimated how much I fucking loathe CrossFit.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's the title of the podcast, obviously, as you probably know. CrossFit is today's episode. We're going to go through Helmet of the Week. We've only got one this week. Eddie was so negative about the actual subject matter of the podcast that he decided not to have a Helmet of the Week to compound his negativity.
Yeah, I've mixed things up. I've negated the Helmet of the Week, but we've gained an extra reason to be cheerful. So I'm hoping to double down on my positivity right at the end.
I like it. Okay. So I'll go straight into my Helmet of the Week, then we can get into the meat of the topic. So, Leah Thomas, are you familiar with this? No? Okay. So she's a trans swimmer. I say she. Depends how you look at it. She's, I think, pre-op when she did this race.
Right.
So she's got testosterone coursing through her fucking veins, right? She was like a collegiate swimmer, and then she went to Worlds, I think, afterwards. But on the qualifier, she beat the rest of the women's field by 50 seconds.
Right.
in a 1500 metre swim.
Can we cover some...
Yeah, cover some ground.
Can we cover some admin?
Yeah.
What's her nationality?
American.
What was she known as before
Oh, I don't
Leah?
know.
What's her name?
I think-
Leah Thomas?
I think it was a male swimmer.
Right.
Yeah, I think she was a swimmer, realised probably wasn't going to make it, transitioned, competed in the female field, and absolutely smashed it. You see him on the podium, and she like dwarfs the women by like 2 feet. It's insane.
I'm not an expert in this,
No, neither am I.
and I'm not an expert in most of the things we talk about on this podcast, but there you go. This is a massive problem for international athletics.
Well, for women in sport, really.
Yeah.
Because imagine, right, you're a woman in that sphere, and you've grafted your entire fucking life to get little seconds off your splits on 1500 metre swim, and you think, I'm king here, I'm just going to smash this. And then someone comes along, for their entire life, they've been a man. So they've just had testosterone coursing through their veins. That's obviously helped their performance in their training. They then transition, having all that base built as a man, and just absolutely blow you out of the water, because obviously...
Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, like, Olympic committees and like athletic confederations and stuff aren't really nailing down on it,
So-
which is why this is still allowed to happen.
The Olympic Committee has just banned this happening. So trans athletes now can't compete in.
Right, surely you must have to like
But surely you need
register like a certain like level of testosterone or something
Yeah.
to compete as a female competitor.
Well, that wasn't the case until very recently. Which is
The
mental.
fuck's all that about?
Yeah, I know. So you could literally
Got
just
some
rock up.
fucking bird rocking up for the butterfly with a full-grown beard.
Yeah. Well, this happened in the weightlifting. There's another case where, again, weightlifting is hugely based off of how much testosterone you have. And this woman, who's now a woman and wasn't a woman before when she trained for ages, did the clean and jerk and the snatch like 20 kilos ahead, 40 kilos ahead of the nearest woman. And it's like, how is this ever going to be fair? And so the Olympic Federation have now banned this, but at grassroots levels, it's still allowed. And obviously, you've got two camps, haven't you,
But this
arguing about this.
For me, this just makes no sense because the whole idea of sport and the whole purpose of sport is that it has very set parameters and rules.
It's finite games.
So this just seems like a massive elephant in the room that no one really wants to acknowledge.
Well, if you acknowledge it, you become transphobic in a lot of people's eyes, don't you? So
Yeah.
that's where it can become a little bit grey.
But this comes back to what we were talking about with obesity and the masculinity crisis.
Yeah.
If you refuse to engage in the debate, if anything, you're just as bad.
Well, it worsens it, doesn't
Because
it?
it worsens it.
Yeah, and it's exactly what they were saying in Black Lives Matter movement, wasn't it? Where if you're not saying anything, you're part of the problem.
Exactly.
Aren't you? Yeah, because you're not.
Like we
speaking
all
up.
need an input.
Yeah.
If we're going to come to, a fair compromise or like a solution, people need to have an opinion on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Be it good or bad.
This is crazy, though. I mean, the fact that this can happen at such a high level very recently is just insane, and you can see. I'll send you the video afterwards. It's crazy. She literally like laps everyone. It's crazy.
So like you said, that's just not fair on the other competitors, is it?
Because like so hard for like that long, and then someone else just comes on.
We graft, and we're like nowhere near professional athletes. So you imagine like the hours and the time and the dedication they put in just to have their fucking hopes and dreams shat all over by a woman with just test coursing through her veins.
Yeah, and the argument is, have they just, not performed in the male sphere and then transitioned over, and now they're going to be smashing it in the female end of things? But it's mad, and you see this with everything. You can't even argue that there's any fair play going on, because you see it when you watch women's football compared to men's football. There's not even a comparison in terms of like the speed of the game, the strength, the power of the shots, that kind of stuff. There's not a comparison. So to put like a male centre forward in the England women's team, it just wouldn't make
you couldn't
any
put
sense.
Haaland in the Women's Super League.
Yeah,
because he'd probably have 80 goals instead of 40.
And the rest. Yeah, so that's mine for this week.
Love that.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously trans athletes should be able to compete, but it's the failing is at like the committee level.
Yeah,
it's the organising bodies that have failed to actually set parameters, which means that this grey area can exist,
and then people can exploit
it.
it. This is the problem, because how do you deal with it? You either have a complete separate group where trans athletes compete against trans athletes, or
but I don't think that's the solution either, because then you're basically isolating trans athletes.
No, exactly, or you say, well, trans athletes can't compete, which obviously isn't good.
Exactly,
either.
You can't. But ultimately, you're never going to please anyone. So you're going to have to set some boundaries.
Yeah.
Be it, I don't know, hormonal. I think that's probably the route you go down.
Potentially, but I mean, that can probably be fiddled and all that kind of stuff. But
the doping's rife in
professional
sport anyway.
As we're going to get into. But yeah, it's crazy that issue, and it is rife within certainly grassroots level sports, and sports like swimming and athletics and weightlifting, where testosterone and the ability to physically perform is paramount. It's going to be even more rife, because in something that's like skill based, it's a little bit less, isn't it? Of an issue.
Right, well, that's helmet of the week out of the way.
Let's
get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. So I've outlined the basic structure, but we may riff as per usual.
I'm sure we will.
What is CrossFit?
Well, hold on. To set some admin points in place, right? Set some biases. Let's set some biases.
All right, okay.
So my training background is that I've done CrossFit for probably 3-4 years, pretty consistently. That was what I trained mainly. You dabbled in it once or twice.
Actually, I don't want to tarnish myself with the CrossFit brush. I wouldn't even go that far.
There you go. So yeah, Eddie's not a fan, essentially, as you might gather from the next few hours. But yeah, just to set some biases in place, and just to we're kind of well placed because I've trained it and am a level 1 CrossFit coach, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this.
And you paid a fortune for it. We'll get onto
that.
So I like to think of CrossFit as the Marmite of the fitness industry. Yeah. You either love it or you hate it. Yeah. And I think we've got that dynamic today. I'm not going as far as say you love it.
Yeah.
But you're more pro CrossFit.
But I'm always in the centre of things. This is what this podcast aims to.
Well, I'm going to try and be central, which is why I've outsourced my criticism to a blog.
Okay,
so
cool.
It reflects.
Hugely biased.
So it reflects less poorly on my own biases.
Yes, okay. So what is CrossFit?
Or do you want to have a pop at articulating a definition? Because I've got one.
Well, are we articulating the definition of the training method of CrossFit, or because there's a few different bits that get quite messy. Like there's the business side of it, there's the training,
So for someone that lives under a rock like Patrick Starfish, CrossFit is both a company and a sport
and a training method. So it's kind of three.
No, but the training method comes under this. It's a sport in the same that like powerlifting is a training method, but it's a sport.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and there's like grassroots and intermediate and pro obviously level. So,
but it does get confusing. It's also a cult, but we'll get onto that.
It is. I'd agree with that. To be fair.
So do you want to have a pop, or should I just give the people what they want?
So I know that the training method is defined as functional movements executed at high intensity, basically. High varied functional movements executed at high intensity. That's what CrossFit is. So if you were to take a CrossFit workout, you would see that there are functional movements in inverted commas because they're not really defined. They're varied all the time, which is, again, a point of contention, and they're executed at high intensity. Another point of contention because we're not going to be building any significant aerobic base if we're always going super intense, as we know.
So the definition that I've got is a high-intensity fitness program incorporating elements from several sports and types of exercise.
Okay.
So it's trying to do a lot and not actually fulfilling many of these promises, is what I would take from that.
Yeah. So
Jack of all trades,
yeah.
Master of none.
Yeah, the one caveat I'll have to that is that it does make your training more interesting in that regard. So it depends what you're looking for, because the ability to train multiple, sports like Olympic lifting, gymnastics, aerobic conditioning, whatever, it means that there's always something to get better at. Like if you're going to double down on your strength, then your body weight stuff's going to suffer and your cardio might suffer. So you're always going to have to pick something up. So it keeps everything quite interesting. So you're never going to get too. I guess that could be a drawback as well. You're never going to get too good at one thing.
Well,
I would say
save some of your positivity because you're going to have to defend this case in a minute.
That's okay. I can do that.
So I'm the prosecutor. He's the defendant. In fact, what we'll do is we both share the idea that CrossFit's time is on its way out somewhat.
Yeah. I think it is suffering a little bit of that. It's had a lot of change in hands, hasn't it?
Yeah,
in a business sense, from CEO point of view for a while.
We'll outline the story of CrossFit now briefly, just so people know where we stand.
Okay.
So it was founded in 2000 by Greg Glassman and his ex-wife. The first CrossFit Games is what kind of like most people think.
It's like the Olympics, right, for CrossFit?
Yeah, for CrossFit. The first Games was in 2007, and this year it will take place in August 23. I believe Glassman sold CrossFit in June 2020.
Yeah, I don't know about sold.
He was forced out.
Yeah.
And who did he sell it to? Eric
Rosa.
Right, okay. Yeah, so that's basically the storyline of CrossFit as a business.
Yeah, and effectively it's quite weird. Eric Rosa was owner of like a tech company and just a CrossFit enthusiast. I think that's pretty much what it was. So he managed to invest highly enough to buy the business. And he ran it for a few years. And I think, is he still CEO?
According to the internet, but
okay.
Make of that what you will.
I think he is, but I don't know how well he's performing.
Well, either way, whoever's in charge of CrossFit, they've got their work cut out.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's mark the rise of CrossFit before we get into the nitty-gritty of the fall, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
So I've drafted a few points as to why I think CrossFit took off. You can riff and add to that if you want.
I will.
Should we go through it? Number one, I think you've already touched on this. It was unique.
Okay. Yeah, there wasn't much like it in its time, I guess, in that 2000 to 2010 era.
It tore up the blueprint for gym-based training.
Yeah, if you look at what gym-based training was back then, it was very much the bro split.
It was bodybuilding, powerlifting,
was massive,
strongman.
Right? Powerlifting and strongman weren't hugely popularised, I wouldn't have said. It was more the bodybuilding era, wasn't it, where...
Well, probably in America.
Post kind of, that's where CrossFit spawned, wasn't it? So it's like, bro splits, a chest... back, legs.
I guess kind of training was a bit more tribal as well. Yeah. You had your camps. Yeah. You had your method of training and you'd probably stick to
that. And so to have something that's going to bring everything together.
Yeah.
And not focus on one specific thing is probably going to tear up a few people's rule books.
So that's one. Mm-hmm. Two, community.
Massive.
This feeds into the fact that we're cross-pollinating.
Yeah, I think this is huge, to be fair, and this will be, you can see this in loads of forms of group exercise, right? So, you've got Barry's Boot Camp in the UK and F45 all over the world. Super successful, I think, because they're a class environment. And so if you take that into, like, each class will have maybe little cliques in there, but you have mates, right, in the class.
Yeah.
If you're just going to the gym with no community and you just have to go in, like we do, and train by yourself, you've got to self-motivate and to get to the gym. You're held accountable by your community because they'll be like, why weren't you at the fucking class at R5 last night? Because you'll be at the same classes most days typically, so you'll get the same people, and therefore those people will text you be like, oh, you coming to the class tonight? it keeps you accountable. You're seeing people, and then you're getting a workout in as well. So there's that community thing. I think is a massive one.
So the community creates accountability, camaraderie, shared sense of suffering.
Yeah, I agree.
And humans crave belonging. Yeah. So the fact that you've added that community component to what was ordinarily like an individual pursuit.
Yeah,
it was quite a clever marketing trick, really.
It's true, it still is an individual pursuit for the most part, because you're working out really by yourself, generally, unless you're doing a team workout. But you're working out by yourself and trying to further your own fitness in that class. But you're doing it, so everyone's doing the same things. Everyone will do the same workouts.
So you've got a shared sense of suffering.
Everyone's doing the same strength cycle, so you can compare and you can chat to people about the same things. So you've got a lot in common with someone in a CrossFit class, even if you haven't got anything in common with them outside of a CrossFit class.
Well, people that do CrossFit haven't got anything going from outside of CrossFit anyway. That's why they do CrossFit. That is their personality. If they had
the most part,
if they had friends, they'd be at the pub. Number 3, superstars.
Yeah. So
hear me out.
This is sport, right? So
I stole this from Eddie Hearn. So if you're listening, Eddie, I owe you. This is the idea that to be commercially successful, a sport needs a poster boy or a poster girl. In the same way that for the past 10 years, boxing has had Anthony Joshua and football has had the Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo debate. You need athletes that people can hang the hat on.
Yeah, latch onto and...
Yeah. Particularly if you're going to make it commercially viable for kids.
Because it's role models.
It's role models, it's the superstars, it's the equivalent of like Superman and Batman.
Yeah, so in CrossFit you had Rich Froning in the early days who was winning all the fucking events and all the games, and then in more recent times you've now got Matt Fraser who's just finished his sort of era of dominance, and then on the women's side, I guess Claire Toomey is the one.
Yeah.
They're the superstars that bring that, because someone could look up at them, like you say, they're role models, they exemplify hard work and all these values that people respect.
But it's not just people within the sport, it's they almost need to transcend the sport to then attract new people into it.
Yeah, well that's the growth part, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is where I think that rugby, I know you don't really watch rugby, but this is where rugby union is currently failing.
Yeah.
Because if most people today in Britain were to name a rugby union player, they'd still say Johnny Wilkinson.
That's true, yeah, you're right.
Because it doesn't have
people to latch
because
identity onto.
The marketability of rugby has been so poorly mishandled.
Yeah.
That they haven't got those superstar athletes. But that's a separate debate anyway. But that's an example of a sport that is floundering when it could be flying.
Yeah. It's a great sport as well. So
that
must be a massive point.
There's 3, and then number 4, which we've already touched on, the CrossFit Games.
Yeah. So this is tied into the superstar thing, isn't it? So
every sport needs
a big competition,
a flagship competition that people can turn up to. That this is the Champions League final.
Yeah.
Of
the
CrossFit,
World Cup or whatever. Yeah, and they do a good job of, to be fair, involving the wider community into that. So, I don't know if you're familiar with like the qualification process. So you've got the Open at the start, which everyone can sign up to. You and me can sign up to it, pay 20 quid. And we can do the same workouts as the pros are doing and essentially compete against them. So again, it gives that, that level of identity with the pros. So then you do the same workouts. Whoever's the best out of that online competition moves on to the next stage, which is regional. So you'd have everyone, like the top 50 in Europe or whatever from the first stage, would then go through. You then do a separate in-person competition with the people in Europe. The top 5 of the people in Europe and in America and all the different regions. Top 5 of all those go to then the CrossFit Games, which is the finals essentially, and then you have like 50 men, 50 women, and they just go at it for a weekend.
Has there ever been like a massive upset in CrossFit in terms of like how like a minnow could get really far in the FA Cup?
Or
are there certain barriers?
Because not that you wouldn't like someone's not there that you wouldn't expect them to be there, because it's kind of you can either do it or you can't. It's not really, because it's fitness. Right. It's not like a skill-based sport. It's a bit different, isn't it? Like football, anything can happen in a football match, but the fitter person on the day in CrossFit is going to win. Right.
So the idea is that like there's not really any upsets, because if they're that good, you'd already know about them.
Yeah, and the only upset that would be is potentially like a programming issue. So if like one of the events, for example, had poor programming, so maybe it skewed really heavily to strength and away from aerobic capacity. Then at the end of that competition, you could have a load of strong fuckers and people who have no engine, and then that region could go to the games and they all be shit because they've got no fitness.
I do like the way that they choreograph the games as well. It is very much a spectacle.
Yeah, it is.
Almost to the athlete's detriment. So
that's the idea.
So the example that I'll use is that, say, one of the workouts is like they've got to do like a barbell base lift, and then they do a certain amount of reps, and then they go and do some muscle ups or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of then returning to the same bar, there'll be another bar.
Yeah, that's
set
for
out
ease.
for them.
So that's for ease of like spectating. So, you know, if you
it's easy to track who's where.
Yeah, exactly.
It turns it into a
like
race.
30 reps.
Yeah.
You are doing 10, 10, 10 rather at each bar rather than doing 30 on the one bar. So you're not like, who the fuck's in front of who? So then you can see in a very linear format. They'll typically put the leader of the heat or the leader going into the heat in the middle. So the idea is that they will be the best in the heat. So they will be in front, leading the charge from the middle, essentially.
Well, I do like that.
Yeah.
I think it's well choreographed.
I think the games are really well choreographed and have been, I think, in the past, really well programmed to find the fittest athlete on that weekend. I think they're quite balanced, in my opinion.
That is your opinion.
It is.
Have you got anything else to add that I haven't already mentioned? Because
I think it massively popularised some really good things that are now a mainstay in the fitness industry. So pre-CrossFit, I would say there was a couple of things that weren't the case that are now. So squat, bench and deadlift weren't as kind of mainstream as they are now. Everyone was, like I say, bodybuilding is massive, so you're having like isolation exercises are all the rage. Everyone's bicep curling, everyone's doing tricep extensions, all that shit. So I don't think, because bodybuilders en masse, well, in the past they do now a bit more, don't squat and don't deadlift because it gives you a big chunky trunk that they don't want. They need that V shape, right? So that wasn't really the case. And like you're saying, if you're looking to your role models to see what you're going to be doing in the gym, if they're not squatting, benching and deadlifting, they're just doing quad extensions and hack squats, then you're not going to do that either. And so to feed back to the grassroots of people in the gym, they weren't doing those good quality exercises either. CrossFit comes along, and in order to be successful in CrossFit, you have to have a good squat, a good bench and a good deadlift, pretty much. Maybe not bench, but overhead press, right? So compound movements, you have to be good at them and you have to move well to be effective and to be good in CrossFit. And therefore, again, if you're looking at, back in the day, if you're looking at Rich Froning, he could squat a fucking shit ton of weight. And so if you were trying to emulate him, you would look to be good at the squat. And that, I think, is a positive thing. I think it's carried on throughout this last decade to now, where everyone really knows the utility in those three movements. That's one thing.
Can I interject there?
Come in on that.
I disagree.
Go on.
I think you've stolen the thunder of powerlifting and strongman and wrongly attributed it to CrossFit.
I don't think either of those things has nearly the popularity of CrossFit, so can't be.
But you're in the CrossFit echo chamber.
No, I disagree. How many powerlifting gyms are there in the US? No.
Yeah, but that's the US. You can't trust the US. You can buy an AR-15 at Walmart.
True. How many strongman specific gyms are there? None, pretty much.
Alright, okay, strongman's more niche, but I think that powerlifting has had a resurgence, and then the two may have overlapped, but I don't think you can just say that it came from CrossFit. I don't think it's solely attributed,
but I think the CrossFit is hugely popular, or certainly has been in the last decade, and it's true that you need to be good in those movements to be good at CrossFit, and therefore there's that carryover of, I'm looking at my idol now in the sport, I need to emulate him, what can I do? I'm going to do what they're going to be good at.
Yeah, no, I think there is something in that, but I also think that other sports contribute.
Oh yeah, I agree.
The rise in the...
It can't just be one
thing.
thing.
The rise in the popularity of kind of more strength-based training as opposed to like bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I think, to play into that a little bit as well, there was a lot of, definitely in the kind of early 2000s to early teens, there was a lot of working out to look a certain way. So, you know, people are working out just to get bigger arms or just to get bigger quads or whatever it may be. And you and I both know that's not as fulfilling as a performance goal is, I wouldn't say.
No.
So, you know, the more you work out for aesthetics, the deeper down this rabbit hole you go, you still wake up sometimes, don't like the way you look, and there's no real objective feedback to how well you're doing at that specific thing. CrossFit comes along, and all of a sudden, you've got people judging their progress off 2K row times, off deadlifts, off cleans, off like weights in the gym. A super objective measure of how good you are at something.
Yeah.
If you're coming in 8 weeks' time and you can deadlift more than you could 8 weeks ago, you know you've improved. If you, for whatever reason, haven't followed your diet to the T for that last 8 weeks, you might not have lost the amount of body fat you want to lose, but you might have taken a minute off your 2K time, or you might have, PR'd a lift or whatever it is. And I think that's more rewarding as a training method than just training for aesthetics. And I think CrossFit plays a huge part in that, making people focus on their performance rather than their aesthetics.
Could you not argue that the structure of CrossFit does actually make it harder to progressively overload, though? Or lack of structure?
In a shit gym, yeah, I agree.
Because if you were just doing CrossFit for the sake of CrossFit and you weren't doing classes or had a CrossFit trainer, you could easily just go astray.
100%. If you're just doing WODs, for example, like Metcons, then yeah, you just throw in together loads of random movements, you're doing them at high intensity, you'll probably get a little bit fitter and a little bit more mobile potentially, but you won't be getting any significant improvements in your strength or physique or whatever. But if you're at a good gym that follows cycles and a decent trainer that makes you move properly, then you're fine and you'll progress. Final one.
Go on.
I've got,
because I feel like we will cover these in my failings.
Yeah,
I think a lot of your counter arguments may be
potentially.
You're just using up ammunition.
That's
if anything,
right.
that's
I
fine.
can repurpose.
That makes my case stronger.
I can rebadge it. The final one is around females, and I think women, again, looking at like the female athletes in the sport, they're like uncompromising. They're obviously really impressive in terms of athletic ability. They don't care about the way they look, not looking at getting a really small waist or a massive arse or whatever. And they're setting, I think, good female role models for women because they're working hard. They don't really care about what other people think or what other people say about them, because there is that hate online of you look like a man or whatever it is.
Some of them do.
They do, but I mean, you don't have to look far to see that, and they don't really compromise their training methodology, obviously, for that. And that, I think, again plays down into the grassroots, where now women are looking at the barbell for the first time in years and thinking, I'm going to go lift that rather than step on the fucking treadmill and just walk for half an hour. I think that is a huge part to play.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I think there are a lot of good female role models in CrossFit, to be fair. More so than men, I would argue.
Actually, I think they do this on purpose. If you go onto the CrossFit Open leaderboard,
yeah,
if you click the drop-down menu, or if you just go CrossFit Open,
they put women first.
They put women
don't they?
go straight
So you
first.
have to select.
Yeah.
You have to go in and select men.
So I think that does well, and they sometimes have done events where they'll put the women and men together. So they'll put them doing the same exact event. Granted, they'll scale the women's weights or whatever, but they're on the same playing field, doing exactly the same reps. And sometimes the women will beat the men, which just is fucking great for women, isn't it? Like if we're seeing like the best in the world at this sport of men are getting battered by women, and again, women can attach themselves, their identity to that.
Right, so I don't know how you want to go about this.
Yeah.
But such is the vast evidence that I have against CrossFit for crimes against fitness. I've actually broken it down into two separate forms of failings.
Hit me.
I've got internal failings,
okay,
things that would put people off CrossFit that have got involved in it, and external failings that would put someone looking to get into CrossFit off it.
Yeah.
If
so
that makes sense.
I think the way this is going to work, Eddie's going to put this to me. I'm either going to agree or disagree, and I'm going to give my reason as to why I do either of those things.
Yeah, so it'll be like when a journalist makes an accusation about anyone, you'll have a right to respond, or you could accept.
Yeah, well,
the blame.
Look, like I said at the start, I'm not a die-hard CrossFit fan. I do appreciate that there are failings, so there won't be everything that I disagree with.
So should we start with things that would put someone that had been doing CrossFit off?
Yeah, because that's where I sit.
Yes, right.
So let's go.
And I should caveat this. This isn't my work. I've stolen this from the internet, which I do a lot of things with. It is quite a good article, though. I won't link it because I can't be bothered. But reason one.
Go for it.
They think doing random shit is functional.
Yeah, so again, it depends where you go. So doing random shit, what do you mean?
So we need to define what is.
We need to deconstruct that a little
What
bit.
is functional training? And
this is the problem. I don't think
it's completely dependent on your goal.
Well, it's also really dependent on who you ask, because everyone has a different fucking definition.
So, for an example, if you go to a CrossFit class and you just do a load of fucking med ball throws, but you're not training for anything specific that would involve med ball throwing, is that really that functional?
No.
I
think
there's a confusion between functional training and then doing movements that are kind of like primal.
That's what they mean, I think.
That it is, isn't it? But it's hard to articulate.
I think what they mean is movements that would be, I guess, you would see in nature, like the squat, the deadlift. Obviously, you wouldn't see them in the way they're done in the gym, but you know what I mean? Like, you'd pick stuff up and you'd fucking sit up out of a chair.
How could we term it? They're like natural movements.
Yeah, they are primal movements, yeah. Like the throw-in or...
But I think there's I think people
hanging off a bar or whatever.
I think people use the term functional when they actually mean primal.
Yeah, potentially. And I think you're right, functional movements are individual and they completely depend on what your goal is. It's not functional if you're training for a marathon to go and do Fran, which is a CrossFit workout, which is 2 minutes long and has loads of thrusters and pull-ups in. Yeah. There's no utility in that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then equally, the example people always jump to is, bicep curls aren't functional. But
well, they are if you're trying to grow your arms.
Well, if you're a professional arm wrestler, if you're a professional arm wrestler, they are.
Or a bodybuilder.
If you're a bodybuilder, exactly. So it's goal dependent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, 100%. And again, you would. I guess the counter argument would be, nowhere in kind of life would you have to do a really heavy bicep curl. So why would you do it in the gym in isolation? But I disagree with that. I think having strong biceps, like I obviously I've got military programs coming out my arse, right? Fucking that is have to be a functional human to go into the military. Obviously, I still have bicep curls in my military program because people have got to condition their biceps to loads of fucking pulling.
Yeah, so like rope climbs, like part and parcel of being in the military. Yeah. That is a functional movement because it's required.
Accessory movement. Yeah. To the functional movement. So I think that's where they get it a little bit wrong. And I think again that's come almost full circle where now people who've got a little bit more of an idea of strength training, strength and conditioning training, have come into the CrossFit world and made now popularised accessory work. Rather than just thinking, let's do a strength and a WOD, which is what it often used to be.
But it's awkward though, because I guess for professional CrossFit athletes, all of these movements are functional.
Yeah, they do.
Because they're going to get tested on it at the CrossFit Games.
Well, also.
But for your average CrossFitter at a CrossFit box, like it's not really, you can't really classify it as functional.
No, unless they're training for a CrossFit competition.
Exactly.
Which they might be, but not all of them are. And I would definitely say that the average Joe that walks in a CrossFit gym should not be doing complex overhead squats and all this sort of stuff.
You've beaten me to number 3.
Straight to 3.
Which is high volume intensity combined with complex movements will fuck you up.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. You're doing 30 reps of an Olympic lift and then you go straight into heavy deadlifts in a CrossFit WOD.
Right, that'd be a shit WOD, but yeah.
But you do see it.
Yeah, you see
what's
shit.
What's the point in that?
Well, you see shit in every sport.
But this shit programming comes back to the fact that you can become a CrossFit coach in a weekend if you basically just pay $1,000.
Yeah, so I disagree massively with that premise that you can go to I having done the course as well. It is fairly extensive, but it is a weekend, and then after that weekend you could. I don't think it's the case anymore, but definitely when I did the course, you could effectively open a gym should you have the funds, attract loads of members if you're decent at marketing. You've done a 2-day course at this point, right? Having not coached anyone in the real world, you could have loads of members flock in with completely different training backgrounds, completely different training goals, and you would just offload your CrossFit rhetoric onto them because that's all you've got, right? And that's where people get fucked because no one's written programming before. You've had a little lecture on it, right? But a lecture that's pretty shit anyway. No one's really taught Olympic lifting to a group of people, which is nails, by the way. Trying to teach Olympic lifting properly to one person is hard enough. So after a weekend of coaching or coaching training, to then try and teach it to multiple people at the same time is also nails. Because in Olympic lifting, you've got so many things through that chain that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And so for you to have the eye to look for all these things that are going wrong in someone's lift is, like I say, hard enough with one person, let alone 20 stood in front of you. So yeah, I don't agree with that should be a.
Well, I think this is one of my key qualms with CrossFit. The idea that it's not, to be a CrossFit coach, it's not a meritocracy. Like you can theoretically just buy your way in.
You can. Well, I guess you have to do a test, but the test is.
But it's a low barrier, isn't it?
It is a barrier to entry, but it's a low barrier to entry. Like I say, I've done it. It's essentially you pay £800, which is more now. I think it's £1,000 now.
Yeah.
You do a weekend of lectures essentially with a few workouts thrown in there, 3 practicals, and then you do a written multiple choice 50 question test. That's it. Done.
Yeah, and this feeds into my concept that CrossFit is a cult.
Yeah.
Because cults normally involve some kind of financial exploitation.
And a barrier to entry.
And a barrier to entry to prove your commitment to the cause. So CrossFit, in the same way that Scientology has different levels that you have to unlock.
Yeah.
With kind of knowledge, basically money.
Yeah.
CrossFit. So that CrossFit's got 4 coaching badges, right?
Yeah.
And they all cost £1,000.
Basically. So you need like $5,000 to be a
and then
all singing, all dancing CrossFit coach.
However much it costs to franchise a CrossFit box.
$3,000 a year. You do have, to be fair, for the opposite side of that argument, the level 1 is like a gateway. Like that is your basic. Even like members at the gym will do that just to get a better understanding for movements and stuff. And the level 2 does require you to have done 6 months of group coaching before you go to that course. So you do have to have some sort of level of coaching before you get to that.
I guess the same way that you can get kind of like sham PT qualifications.
Yeah, exactly. The whole fitness industry is fucked, isn't it? It's not just CrossFit.
Yeah, true. Like there are loads of like non-accredited PT qualifications out there that you can just get in a weekend.
Even the accredited ones are shit.
Yeah.
Like the one we did, it's not great, is it? Like it's longer. But that doesn't necessarily cover much more ground.
It's certainly more comprehensive than a weekend at CrossFit one.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as doing like an A-level or a bachelor's degree. It's nowhere near having like a sports science degree.
No, and look, I think for what it's worth, from my opinion, the best thing you can do to be a good coach is coach.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes to get you in the door first, you need to do the first 1,000 hours of coaching or whatever to then be able to solve people's problems effectively. Yes, you need a base of knowledge, but outside of that, it's experience.
Right, so my next criticism feeds into your programming point.
Yeah.
Constantly changing everything too often is not a unique selling point.
Yeah, agreed.
But they market it as a selling point.
Yeah, so
you're never doing too much of the same thing, but as we know from good programming, consistency is key.
Consistency is key. I would say though that to keep beginners engaged, often I have and people, experienced coaches that I know have massively changed programming far more frequently than they should have or need to, just to keep people engaged. Because a beginner doesn't want to do a squat cycle for 12 weeks because they're like, fucking, we're squatting again. It's Monday. Come on, can we do something different? So that's all I'd say to that. I mean, yes, there is a balance to strike, I think. Like, you do need to do the same movements effectively or the same patterns of movement week in, week out to judge your progress. But at the same time, if we're looking at like general pop and what they want and what they need from it, they really need adherence to a program. And if that comes from changing things a little bit more often than maybe they should, then why not?
I'm not convinced. What were you telling me the other day about the new exercises that CrossFit's introduced this year?
Skipping.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gash.
That's one of many examples.
That's just shit. That I don't understand.
So have they chinned off
that.
double unders now?
No, they're still doing it, I think. But this is just their progression from doubles.
So it's a crisscross, right?
Yeah, it's a skip with a cross. It looks like you're at like
on a playground.
Yeah, it's terrible. So
you see boxers like pinging them out left, right, and centre.
Yeah,
doing like a warm up or something. But I just don't see what place it has. How is it beneficial to CrossFit in any way?
Well, the idea is coordination. So one of the 10 general physical skills, which we could get up, but there's no point really. Essentially, there's 10 physical skills that you need to be good at to be fit in CrossFit's terms. One of them is coordination. And so I agree, and timing. So coordination and timing when you're skipping are huge. Hand-eye coordination if you don't have it, and timing if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to skip very well. But the double under accomplishes that.
This is what I was just about to say. Like the
And
double
so you
under.
don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No, the double under is quite a sophisticated movement.
Yeah,
anyway. Like it takes a long time to master. I haven't mastered it.
Yeah, because the timing's really hard and the coordination side.
It's a fine motor skill. So why do you need to overcomplicate it?
But there's also so many other movements in CrossFit that exemplify the same thing. Like coordination and timing are in Olympic lifting. They're in dumbbell movements. They're in kettlebell movements. All these sort of things still have. So you don't need to, like I say, reinvent the wheel and go back and almost strip the double under back a step to make it look stupid. Anyway, so I said, looking in, CrossFit hasn't obviously, got the market share yet. It's not really popular where it can start doing mental shit and people don't care. Outside looking into that, it just looks shit. It just looks shit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're looking at like, what the fuck are they like? Why are they in a playground? And also, it wasn't actually fair. Like, this was a open standard. So, like I said before, where the open is that online competition. This crossover was brought in this year for this open. They found athletes that had access to these drag ropes, these heavier ropes, could just fucking easy, mate, like no problem, because the pace of the rope was right. People that were using their double under speed rope for the same thing,
baby shit,
just shafted.
Yeah.
So it's shit. So obviously, the athletes who don't need any help anyway, because they're athletes, have a really like unlevel playing field with general people, which is just shit.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have equipment being the barrier between being good and being shit or something.
I think we've basically covered that one. Right, reason 5, and this is the last one for the internal reasons. Why is everything kipping? Why have you got to kip everything? This is stupid.
Come up.
This is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
From someone that does a lot of strength-based training, the idea is that I build muscle.
Yeah.
And strength.
Yeah.
Kipping completely gets rid of the eccentric portion of a movement.
Yeah, so you nailed it. They're not trying to build muscle or strength. There you go. So the reason the kipping
they're just trying to get really good at fucking moving.
Basically. So the reason the kipping
there
pull-up...
There is no goal, because CrossFit is the goal.
No, the kipping pull-up is in there because it's a sport. So it should only really be used in a competitive environment. But to get good at it for a sport, you have to practice it. That's the first thing. So if you're saying, we've both got to do 50 pull-ups, how can we do them faster? That's what they're doing. They're just finding a way to do them faster. In order to get better at kipping pull-ups, you do have to do the strict movement. You can't just do the kipping fucking movement and get better at it, because again, you don't build strength, you build kind of efficiency in the movement. So you have to do strict, weighted, banded, all this shit to get good at that movement in the first place. But the goal of the kipping stuff, whatever you're looking at, whether it's handstand push-ups or pull-ups, isn't to get stronger. It's just to improve at the kipping pull-up.
Are you just going to get injured?
But it's just like saying, it's like any sport. It's like saying, the bowler in cricket, why are you doing that? Because it fucks your shoulder up. Why would you want to do that so fast? Because it's going to rip your rotator cuff out. Well, because it makes you better at the sport.
But what my argument is, right, normal pull-ups are safer.
Yeah.
And you build muscle and strength.
Mm-hmm.
Kipping pull-ups don't build muscle or strength, and you're more likely to get injured.
But then again, they're not trying to build anything. They're trying to compete with each other.
That's just stupid though. Like, it's a race to 50 pull-ups. Well, they're not. You're not even doing fucking pull-ups. You're just swinging on a bar like a twat.
Also, what they've done is make it easily judgeable. So, if me and you say we've got to do 30 strict pull-ups, let's go. The kind of room for error in a strict pull-up is weird. It's kind of grey. Like, someone could do strict pull-ups over there and think they're strict, and we'd be like, fucking, what the hell is that? Because their legs are bent behind them or whatever. So there's a lot can go on. What they've said is, all you have to do is straighten your arms and get your head above the bar, chin above the bar, straighten your arms. As long as you do that, it's a pull-up. Whatever happens in between, doesn't matter. That's what they've said to make it easy to judge.
This is fucking stupid.
But it's just like any sport.
So
it's a sport.
Stupid. But why don't you just say, right, so a strict pull-up, your head's got to go above the bar, you've got to have your feet in line with each other out straight, you've got to hold the hollow position, and you've got to lock out your arms at the bottom.
Because, I'll tell you why, you can't then put them into a high intensity session.
But this just goes back to my point. We're going around in circles.
No, so a high intensity, obviously you need to have fucking heart rate jacked up or whatever. It needs to be aerobically taxing. A strict pull-up, if you put it in the middle of say you're doing like 20 cal row, 20 strict pull-ups and something after it, that 20 strict pull-ups is effectively for your heart and lungs going to be a rest in it. That's what they're trying to avoid. When you're moving at speed, you're going to be fucked.
Right, so just accept that pull-ups aren't a great movement for CrossFit. Like, stop trying to fucking wedge them into your sport. This goes back to them trying to do everything and everything. Not everything's suited to everything.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, they can't really have a fitness sport without pull-ups in, can they?
Well,
and again...
does that not say it all, then?
And again, they have to do the strict movement in practice to get better at the kipping movement. No good CrossFit coach or CrossFit gym will have you go in and learn the kipping movement first. No good one.
Right, so if they're learning strict pull-ups anyway, why don't they just use strict pull-up? I can't get my head around the idea of the kips. Like gymnasts use like kipping movements because they need to.
Yeah,
you know,
so
to get up onto the top of a bar, you need to kip up to it because that's then to perform their routine. But like for CrossFit, the idea of kipping is that kipping is the goal. There's you know, it's not a means to an end.
But it still does require endurance. So if I'm like, if I do a max set of kipping pull-ups, I might do 40, but then I'm fucked. So there is a physiological limit to the. It's like you can be better than someone else at kipping pull-ups.
Yeah, but in the same way,
it still is a meritocracy.
If I got 2 5-kilo weight plates in my hand, and I just wave them about like a mentalist for 5 minutes, that requires endurance. But it's not safe, and there's no purpose to it.
But kipping pull-ups are safe. So
they're not safer than strict pull-ups.
They're not safer than strict pull-ups. They're just safe. I've done thousands of them in my life.
But yeah, but like
my shoulders are sound.
Yeah, but you're experienced.
Yeah.
If you're a beginner,
that's what I said. No beginner should do pull-ups.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. So if they're already learning strict pull-up, just stop there. They've actually done something harder.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't see the point.
They're building strength.
But
stability.
I don't see the point.
And then they can go and do the sport like anything. It's like strength and conditioning for a sport.
Right, okay. We're getting in circles now.
Yeah, I disagree on that one.
Kipping is fucking stupid. Yeah. Don't do it.
I disagree in certain circumstances.
Right, we've covered all them now. We're going to my criticism of CrossFit. Okay. Greg Glassman.
Yeah, he's a helmet.
He's a helmet.
Yeah,
I'm glad you've admitted that.
I agree.
So he basically had to give up CrossFit because he's a helmet.
Yeah, he tweeted something, didn't he, about George Floyd or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the tweet, but not on me. I'm not printing it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't read it out.
I think he was trying to allude to the fact that his death was like part of a COVID conspiracy or something.
I don't know.
It was throwing a lot of shit at the wall, basically.
I'm not sure what he said, but he essentially got revolted by all of the CrossFit athletes and all of the CrossFit gyms.
So apparently he's supposedly also misogynist as well. You know about this?
Yeah.
So like he's
someone came out that worked at CrossFit HQ for a while and hadn't had a good dealing with him on multiple occasions. So he's not coming out in the best light.
Yeah, so he's kind of like apparently bred a sexist culture at like the upper management top level of CrossFit. Apparently he referred to his legal team as hot lawyer chicks.
Yeah, which is the strange, because as we said at the start, you know, CrossFit has some good female role models. And,
I forgot about this.
It's
apparently,
good for women.
Do you know about the Wi-Fi password?
No.
So like the Wi-Fi password at CrossFit's California office, which is like their main office, was wet pussy.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Like you can't run a serious organisation.
It never
like
was.
a frat house, can you?
Yeah, it's kind of like a cowboy organisation anyway. I think he liked that. He liked that ability to ruffle some feathers or to be a little bit controversial or whatever. He always liked that in the media and all that sort of stuff anyway.
He does come across as someone that liked kind of being like anti-establishment.
Yeah,
but that's ultimately his downfall.
Yeah.
Because when CrossFit becomes a part of the establishment, it can't function.
But I don't think it was ever his aim for it to be a part of like every day, for it to be some part of everyone's life. I think.
Well, apparently they didn't have a HR department until 2013.
Yeah,
which is fucking mental.
I can see that. It was a small business that I think just fucking careered out of control.
Well, anyway, he sold the business, but he was basically asked to leave politely. I think
stepped down, didn't he?
Yeah. Got anything to add to that? I think we're in agreement there. Yeah, he's a bit of a hat, isn't he? Number 2, gatekeeping / high barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
We've touched on this already, but I think financially and physically there is a high barrier to entry within CrossFit.
Yeah.
So
in certain circumstances, I would agree with the physically. I agree with financially.
Financially, obviously. So if you want to be a coach, you've got to cough up money for your coaching badges. Equally, if you want to go down to your CrossFit box, very few CrossFit boxes offer the opportunity to just basically do your own thing. You've got to buy into classes.
Well, you have to do CrossFit, but that's, I think, not a fault on gyms either. That's a fault on the sort of the whole.
Yeah. This is a failing of the business model.
Yeah, and I do think, in fact, if you're looking at what you get for your money in a CrossFit gym, I think you get a fairly good deal, to be honest. And it is more expensive than a normal gym. Like JD that you go to is £20 a month or whatever.
Bargain, mate.
CrossFit is like £70 a month, for example. If you get £70 a month, but you get 5 sessions a week with a coach who's going to tell you what to do, and he's going to do all your programming for you, he's going to coach you through all the fucking complex movements, ideally in a good gym. That's worth it to me, because otherwise, it's like a hybrid between paying a PT £40 a session or paying £75 a month for 20 sessions or whatever.
True. So how does it work? Because I've never actually been to a CrossFit box. So do you pay for individual sessions or do you buy a membership?
Buy a membership, typically. You can do either, but more cost effective if you
more cost effective to
buy
do
a
that.
membership. Yeah.
Right,
So you buy a membership for like, there'd be tiers. So you do maybe 3 classes a week, it'd be so and so amount. 5 classes a week would be a bit more. Unlimited access would be a bit more.
Okay.
Open gym would probably be less.
So that's the financial barrier to entry. Physically, I think CrossFit is very physically demanding, and many of the movements are advanced. Like Olympic weightlifting is not something that you just go and do off the cuff.
No, I agree.
A counter argument to this would be, oh well, you can scale exercises and do regression exercises. No beginner wants to do that.
That's true. Yeah, it's a bit of an ego hit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an ego hit. You're working on your own. You just go back to this sense of community. Everyone else in the class is doing the same thing. You're on like a fucking beginner bar doing a regression exercise.
But I guess it depends on your ego, because if you're expecting to be a beginner and not be the best at it, then that's fine. You should expect to go there and have people who are better than you. That should be a thing that you expect. Also, some classes or CrossFit gyms have beginner classes, which is good because you get all the beginners together. The other thing is, you can scale exercises, but normally the exercises are the same exercise. They would just now drop the load. So if it's a pull-up, we're having now a banded pull-up, or an inverted row. So it's a similar movement, and they're doing the same workout as everyone in the class is maybe doing the same workout. We've just got different levels.
It takes years to master things like Olympic lifts, though.
Yeah, I'm still fucking trying.
You'd be in the beginner class for a long time.
Yeah, you're not looking at mastering things before you get out of the beginner's class.
Well,
I'm still trying to master the Olympic lifts. I've been doing it 6 years.
True. My counter argument to it though is if you go to a gym and you do kind of like more conventional bodybuilding style movements, like you don't have to be an expert to do like a bicep curl or a bench press.
Yeah, I think there
or
is
even a squat, or even a squat and a deadlift. I mean, it takes years to master them, but to just get like,
how many people do you see who go in the gym and do shit squats and shit deadlifts and injure themselves because of that? A lot of them. And I think if you go into a CrossFit gym, because you've got a coach there, that wouldn't happen. They're at least going to teach you how to squat and deadlift. At least. If you go into a JD gym having never touched a bar before, no one's stopping you loading 100 kilos on and trying to pull it off the floor because you saw it on Instagram.
True, but that's the own individual's fault.
Yeah, so it still happens.
But CrossFit encourages like Olympic movements. You know, this is what I mean about a high barrier to entry. It's a requirement of the sport.
It's a requirement of the sport,
but like just going to if someone of their own free will goes to a gym and decides to try and squat 100 kilos, having never squatted before, like commercial gyms not told them to do that. They've just done that of their own free will.
No, exactly. So in a way, CrossFit is safer because you get someone, essentially a babysitter, to stop them doing that. But it's not to load them effectively and load them efficiently.
It is, but it isn't, because then it's getting kind of people that aren't proficient in Olympic lifting to do high repetitions of those movements with poor form for time. Yeah, like the time element isn't. That just adds an extra element of jeopardy that isn't needed with these high complex movements.
It adds to the competitive element, though. Again, trying to keep people engaged and thinking about a program that's going to encourage adherence, which is the number one thing to getting results. Doesn't matter what the fuck you do, as long as you do it for a long period of time, as we know. For someone who's trying to go there multiple times and wants to stay engaged, having something that's like a competition is a good thing for that, because it means they can measure again. Am I getting better? Did I beat fucking Dave this time? No, he fucking picked me at the post. Fuck, I need to work harder on this to get better at him. So it's a good thing in that respect. But yeah, I agree that obviously doing heavy Olympic lifts for time with no form is obviously a bad thing. No one disagrees with you there.
I just think they're trying to do too much. Like, just leave it at, like, the Olympic lifts. Like, that's hard enough as it is.
Weightlifting.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. They're trying to do too much. Like, they've stolen... Greg Glassman's basically, like, a genius plagiariser. He's just stolen all his favourite bits from other sports.
Yeah, no one owns them.
And tried to make, like, a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, well, I, again, wouldn't say that they do, oftentimes, really heavy, like, high percentage Olympic weightlifting work for reps. I would say if you're looking at one rep map, again, a good coach needs to be involved. A lot of this is coming down to the coach, which it should be.
But you're putting an awful lot of faith into people that have paid $1,000 to attend a weekend course.
But I've disagreed with that model, haven't I? I think
a
good CrossFit coach should be able to moderate their class and say, you've been here 4 weeks. Don't put 60 kilos on that bar. Put the fucking 5 kilo training plates on.
Yeah, true. And this is why it's failing. Ultimately, because they've not addressed this.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like communism.
There are some fantastic CrossFit gyms out there, but there are also some really shit ones. And you know what? The shit ones are the ones you see on Instagram with someone fucking a barbell fucking themselves.
Yeah, in theory, it sounds great.
Yeah.
If it was in theory, I'd love CrossFit. But unfortunately, it's rooted in the real world. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it works for some people. Say it doesn't work. It does. But just not for everyone.
Yeah, that's like a lot of things. Number 3, I think this is the biggest one. This is the thorn in its side. Well, to external people that don't really know a lot about potentially CrossFit or the fitness industry, performance-enhancing drugs and doping allegations.
Yeah. I would again say that they're rife in every sport.
They are, but it's this idea that it goes back to what we were saying earlier about its superstars. They've put these individuals on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And CrossFit athletes have repeatedly come out and said numerous times that they don't take anything.
Yeah.
And then every now and again
to take it.
And then every now and again, lo and behold, someone gets done.
Yeah, you're always gonna get someone taking stuff. Like, that's just the bigger the prize purse gets, as in the bigger amount of money you can win at the games, the more people that attracts, and then the more people who are in the kitty, the more people who aren't willing to put in the honest work and are just thinking, fuck it, I'll just cheat. So then the more people you're going to catch. So as it gets bigger and bigger, of course you're going to get more people cheating.
I think my issue particularly resonates with the fact that they've been so against it. A lot of athletes, so Matt Fraser was fucking adamant that he'd never taken anything. Most of the competitors have never taken anything.
And he'd be damned. Imagine if it did come out that he'd taken something. He'd be fucked. His reputation would be shot. He'd be selling no more programs. But it probably won't now because he's retired. But
exactly, he's escaped.
He could be that he's natural. You never know.
He could be, but
he could just be a genetic freak.
Well, that's the thing.
Which he also is, but.
Yeah, so there is that element of, like, these people are obviously genetic freaks.
Yeah.
But even so,
the amount they're doing is ridiculous. But also,
it just doesn't add up to me.
The other thing is they train more than anyone else, and they again optimise every other part of their lifestyle more than anyone else. So if anyone's going to be able to do what they can do, it's them. Naturally, they might not be.
You do always try and see the best in the fitness industry, though.
And again, to take it into other parts of the fitness industry, fucking bodybuilding is rife. Bodybuilding fitness influencers like Mike Thurston and all these people, they're fucking on juice. Like, all of them are juiced up to the eyeballs.
Yeah,
so it's everywhere. It's not just CrossFit.
I think in bodybuilding though, it's known.
Well, yeah,
and even if some athletes come out and deny it,
shows, don't they?
Yeah. People know it's accepted practice.
Yeah, like that Mike O'Hearn. He's like 52 years old.
Yeah,
absolutely
that's what I mean.
Wham.
But I think my issue came from the fact that CrossFit Games documentary that we watched, where Ricky Garrard got caught with a vial on camera. Fucking nice one, man. How much is he paying his coach for that?
Yeah,
fucking hat.
She is, mate. His brother.
Who now competes, isn't he?
He always competed.
But why isn't he banned as well?
Hasn't been caught taking it.
Right. But then it came out that he'd been caught with, what had he done? Like some fucking tests.
Tyranobol or something like that.
Yeah, some shit. But then they interviewed all the athletes.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's the self-righteousness of it. It's the fucking first to throw him under the bus. Like, I'd never do that. You're only saying that because you still haven't got caught.
If you don't know that.
But my argument is,
guilty.
we kind of fucking do. Because we know that there are so many ways to get around. You know, and if you're paying the best coaches and industry professionals, they know all the loopholes anyway.
Yeah, you're not...
The Soviets did it for fucking decades at the Olympics.
You're not, like... They're not... The testing isn't amazing, let's face it. It could be a really dirty sport where everyone takes stuff. But they haven't been caught yet. So you can't just...
True, but it's...
tar them with the steroid
No,
brush.
it's the poor sportsmanship. It's be like, be gracious in victory. Like, instead of just, like, not commenting or being like, oh, yeah, it's not good for the sport, it's the way that they double down on him.
Yeah, but it could be if they're being genuine because they've worked so hard and then this person just come up fucking...
True, but I'm a cynic, so I don't believe that.
I'm not. So you get both ends of the coin with this podcast.
Right, so that's number 3.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't already dead in the water already, COVID-19.
Right.
From a purely practical standpoint of literally gyms couldn't open.
Yeah.
And like the whole business model of CrossFit is built on the idea that you go to a CrossFit box and work out as a community in groups.
Yeah. Is that CrossFit's fault?
No, but I'm saying this is what's failing.
Oh, yeah.
Because financially, for like 2 years, it couldn't operate properly. Obviously, CrossFit's not to blame for COVID. I'm just saying
you're going pure conspiracy.
No, I'm just saying that this is why it's failing. In the same way that most of the fitness industry took a hit for 2 years.
Exactly, and that's true. And the martial arts industry was massively hit because obviously 9 times out of 10 you're grabbing onto fuckers. You couldn't do that.
But it's the idea that like so much of CrossFit is caught up in this community element.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way that other sports could survive, you know, people could train at home or whatever, and then when COVID came back, they'd just return to the sport. Like CrossFit lost out on 2 years of indoctrination, basically.
True. But they could also train by themselves at home. Like
I'm not saying I'm on about CrossFit as a financial entity now.
Oh yeah, but they're obviously gonna lose out, and they probably I don't know, the company probably didn't lose out too much. I imagine the gyms kept paying.
But then without
because they're bastards.
But without the franchises, then like the main head of the snake can't survive.
But also, when Greg Glassman resigned and that tweet thing came out, loads of gyms de-affiliated with CrossFit.
Yeah, it's like it was a double whammy because it happened at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, they were having £3,000 a month from all of these gyms, and they all just said nope, change their name, and that's it. So yeah, I think that's obviously going to play into any business right now as a failure point, certainly in-person business.
Right, so they're the failings that I have for CrossFit. You can add to your own suffering if you want.
I have another one.
Go on.
The introduction of Hyrox, and this plays a little bit.
Well, this feeds into what now?
Right.
The fall of CrossFit, the rise of Hyrox.
Yeah, I think that's true. So, to your point about its high barrier to entry, so if you look at competing in CrossFit, which at the end of the day, a lot of people who are that way inclined want to compete. They want to put themselves off against other people, right? In order to do that in CrossFit, you have to learn complex movements. You have to learn overhead squats, toes to bar, chest to bar, all these movements that you have to learn that take ages to, first of all, learn, and second of all, get proficient in. What Hyrox have done, by the looks of it, to me, is they've looked at CrossFit and thought, that's great, that. I'm going to take every movement that doesn't take any skill. I'm going to bring that into my own event, and I'm just going to make people do that. So things like wall balls, easy really. Things like sled push, sled pull, ski erg, rowing, all of those are in Hyrox, and people can now look at Hyrox if they've got like a semi-athletic background like you, who you've ran before, you've lifted before. You can throw yourself straight into Hyrox without any care really, because you don't have to learn how to snatch or how to clean and jerk.
Perfect.
There you go. So I think CrossFit, for that reason, because Hyrox is on such an incline, I think a lot of the individuals that would have been drawn towards CrossFit are now looking at the two and thinking, actually, Hyrox is probably more my style.
Yeah, that's exactly the camp that I'm in.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's just lowered the bar to entry for so many people.
Definitely.
So that's sort of like an untapped market that CrossFit basically alienated for its entire existence.
Yeah, and also people who are really involved in CrossFit and now looking at Hyrox thinking, I wonder how I'll do on that, and then they go into that as well.
Yeah, so they're stealing CrossFit. And also, I think that there's a lot of people in the gym, right, that train, and they train hard, but there's never really any end goal. True. You know, so they'll slog, they'll do their cardio, they'll do their strength stuff, but like they're never gonna compete like in a powerlifting competition.
They've got nothing to work towards.
CrossFit gives them something to work towards.
Yeah.
Not CrossFit.
Well,
Hyrox gives them something to work towards.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, because you get these people who, like you say, are interested in just lifting and doing cardio, and you put those things together and put it in an event that's now in 3 months' time. Now they've got something to work towards, and that's brilliant. That's why you're getting such a popularity now with Hyrox. Yeah. And if you don't know what we're on about with Hyrox, it's basically a singular workout that's mega long, 8 stations, and in between each station you've got to run. The stations are, like we said, pretty simple to do, and there's scaled options as well.
It goes back to what we were saying about like primal movements.
Yeah.
They're all basic movement, or they're variations on movements that most people are capable of doing.
Yeah, as long as you can squat and run, pretty much that's it.
And jump.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mean, even again, if you're thinking, oh, I like the look of Hyrox, but it's a bit too much for me. It's a little bit too much of a beast to handle first time. You can go and do a pairs one, which I think is really good. They hit a pairs market, so you can go and do it with your pal, and you can share all the work. So you can go, I'm going to go do Hyrox, but I'm not going to go the full whack. I'm now just going to do 500 metres of the row rather than 1,000 metres, and you can temper it that way, and you can sort of build your way into Hyrox. And then talking about progression, there's again that objective progression of performance now. You can look at your splits in a Hyrox meet and be like, I'm going to take a couple of seconds off my run this time, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really good in that respect.
I feel like it's easy to measure progress with Hyrox as well, because it's a time.
Yeah, true.
The only thing, like, you're just trying to lessen your time.
Faster. Yeah, that's it.
It's just easier.
And it's quite interesting again, because you can look at, there's 8 disciplines. So you could look at your time and be like, okay, my run was sound, all this was sweet, my row was the thing I dropped time on. So then you can go into a 6-week rowing cycle, and then you get better.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, I think it's easier for like an amateur or like a non-coach to break down where they need to work on.
Yeah, because even
it's like foolproof CrossFit basically.
Yeah, even I look at my ability at CrossFit, and I'm a bit like, what, you know, where do I focus here?
It's smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Like, you think you need to work on one thing, but actually it could be something else.
Yeah, and there's so much to do. Like, I've for ages been chasing my tail essentially. With I need to be good at lifting, I also need to be good at aerobically, I need to be good at gymnastics, and trying to do all these things at once, which is obviously what CrossFit's about. It requires you though to train so much, because it just requires you to put in so much volume to get better at all these things, and that's where the hyper hobbyist comes in.
Go on.
So this is the hyper hobbyist of CrossFit. Is like the people who are where I was essentially like a year or two ago, where you think, you know, with a bit of extra work, you get to that next level. You think you're just below, like the regionals competitors, just below them.
Yeah.
And you think, right, I'm going to dedicate fucking whatever. And I think they're the people who don't necessarily have bang on form, because they've thrown themselves in. They're maybe like a little bit athletic back in the day, and then they're going to just try it. They're also then going to absolutely frag themselves because they need to get wherever they're trying to go. They're going to, you know, spend hours and hours in the gym every time. They're going to dedicate whatever it is, money or time, energy, to this sport, which again is just eating them up. Like, they're not getting anything from it.
No.
Like, you can't really make any money or get anywhere at the grassroots level of CrossFit until you get to the games, which is obviously like 1 in 80.
Yeah, but at that point you're already a professional athlete.
Yeah, in some respects. The people who are placing like 40th at the games, which by the way are insane athletes, they're not making anything.
Well, that's another failing of the CrossFit business.
Oh,
if it can't sustain like that level of competitor financially,
no, they don't.
Then it's not viable, is it?
A lot of times they had people travelling to their event, paying for their own travel, like paying for their own accommodation.
You want to look after your own sports stars.
Yeah, they don't. And apart from, I think really recently, where they dropped the price purse and sort of disseminated it a little bit more equally for a long time, because it was a growing business with a tight price but a tight money pot. So a lot of time it was just 1, 2, and 3 you got money, and the rest of them fuck you. you're left to try and sweep up sponsors if possible. But then again, because those athletes, if you're placing like top 50 in the world, you're putting a fucking hell of a lot of graft in there. So you probably can't have a job. And if you have a job and trying to manage your CrossFit volume, you're probably going to burn out in a year. So you probably have to leave your job, commit everything you've got to this goal. And if you don't make it top 10, you're not getting paid. It's
That's
fucking
shit.
gash.
That's the sign of like a failing sport in my
And I think part of it is because CrossFit was so small in grand scheme of things, so they didn't really have the resource. But it is a reason as to why they're probably failing.
Yeah. Right, well, I've covered all my points. Have you got anything else to add?
No,
I don't think I went in
that's it.
too hard on reflection.
No.
I envisioned it going a lot worse. I think that was me being measured, by the way. So.
This is Eddie being nice. But no, I think like we've said, I think it's a good thing for people to get into, and like we covered at the start of the episode, like there is massive benefits to it in the industry as a thing, but I think it is failing.
And I just want to clarify, when I say failing, I don't mean it's in the gutter. I mean, like, I just think as a sport, from what I can see at the moment, it's peaked.
Yeah,
it's not to say that it's still not popular and that people shouldn't do it, but like, I just don't think it's going to hit the heights that it did pre-COVID.
I don't think so. And also
early 2010s.
I'll just
mid
say
2010s.
This is like this year in the Open was like post-COVID, like they're getting back into it, right? There's new management, new ownership, whatever. So the big stage that everyone sees, the Open, everyone sees the live announcements of these workouts. What they are is like they'll announce a workout and two of the athletes that everyone heard of will go at it straight away. So they did this in the first Open workout. They misloaded the women's bar, so they're trying to set the standard, right? So you're saying to a community of people who've now got to do this workout remotely online and hold the standard. So these gyms and people individually have got to go and they've got to go and be honest with themselves, load the right weight, hold the correct movement standards. On the actual live announcement, they put 38 kilos rather than 40 kilos or something on the women's bar, and so those two women who went hell for leather and smashed the workout, they had to go and do it again because they fucking misloaded the bar. And then second week comes, you think they can't fuck it up again? Oh, they can. So they had like a workout, and then it followed with a max thruster, so squatting to press, and the thruster has to be hips and knees locked out, and you just press in the bar from the squat. Obviously, you can't re-dip the knees to get underneath it and help yourself out. On the footage, you can see one of the athletes pretty much re-dipped his knees and got underneath it. So again, they're not holding the same standard, and they let that rep count. So two times out of three, basically, they didn't hold the fucking standard, which they were trying to put out to the rest of the world to then be like, this is the gold standard, do what we've done, and you'll be sweet.
This happened at its peak, though. In that documentary that we watched from 2017.
Yeah.
What was that event? The sledgehammer event? What was it called?
Oh, yeah. Like banger or something.
Yeah.
Assault banger.
So you basically got to hit a metal bar along a chute with a sledgehammer, with the idea being that you're hitting it with a sledgehammer, not dragging.
Yeah.
Not dragging it with the hammer.
Yeah, you're only moving it with the force of the sledgehammer on the thing, on the end of the thing.
Yeah. We haven't articulated that perfectly. But just imagine that there's a bar in between your legs and you've got to hit it through your legs with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
What basically transpired is the person that won the event was kind of hitting it with the sledgehammer, but then kind of conveniently also combining it into a bit of a drag.
Yeah, so they'd park themselves behind where they were supposed to be, and they were getting more leverage by hitting on top of the block and just dragging it back. So obviously at every hit they were getting like
they're gaining
like 6 inches on everyone else. So that was shit as well, yeah. And that was at the actual World Championships.
That was at the World Champ, not just the Open.
Yeah.
That was at the CrossFit Games. So yeah, I think that wraps up CrossFit.
Yeah, I agree.
End with some positivity now.
Yeah,
gives me a chance to redeem. Gives me a chance to redeem myself.
You need it.
Do you want to do the first one because you're not aware of the second one, are you?
No, I'll let you do both.
Right. Okay. So the first one feeds into what we were saying about junk food advertising in the obesity episode. The Premier League this week came out and announced that there will be a ban on gambling advertisements on the front of shirts from the 25-26 season.
So we called this.
We called this. We foreshadowed this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we can only hope now
Next time.
that next time fast food will be next.
I think so. Yeah, so it's only a matter of time before Mackey's can no longer sponsor football teams.
It will be interesting to see if fast food companies do fill the void left by gambling companies. And I'm not actually sure if they've already been banned from sponsoring the front of football shirts, because you don't see many.
No, I wonder why that is. You used to see them sponsor England, so maybe they have been banned.
Yeah, potentially. But then that begs the question, if they're not allowed to advertise on the front of football shirts, why can they still advertise literally everywhere else in society?
It's true. You can only win a couple of times, can't you? You can't win everything.
But that's a reason to be cheerful anyway. Not least because gambling sponsorships on shirts look shit.
That's true. They do look.
They
terrible.
look shit. So like obviously like alcohol advertisements on shirts, like that rightfully that is banned because it promotes, it kind of glorifies
and smoking,
glorifies and romanticises drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that the Carlsberg sponsorship on the Liverpool shirt didn't look sick.
Iconic though, innit?
Iconic.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good thing that fucking betting's banned.
Yeah, because
it looks
betting
class.
ruins lives anyway. Like, I don't really. Like, I flutter occasionally, but I just don't get on board with this idea that like betting is good. You just don't get anything from it.
No, it doesn't provide. Obviously the betting companies are the ones that win, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be a viable business otherwise.
So that and the fact that they look gash is a reason to be cheerful.
There you go. So they're no more by 25, 26.
And secondly, I'll have to go into my photos for this one, so I took a screenshot of it. This is a good one. Right, are you aware that a man in Scotland has become a firefighter at the age of 56?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, this is
That's
mental,
class.
right? So a former Royal Air Force engineer has said age is not a barrier after becoming a firefighter at 56.
That's awesome.
Michael Rimmer, shout out Michael Rimmer, completed 12 weeks of Scottish Fire and Rescue Service training after a 31-year career in the RAF.
What a legend. He just can't stop, can he?
That's
can't
mad.
stop
Firstly, right, he's got a fucking pension burning a hole in his fucking bank account.
Yeah, he's sorted, isn't he, for like 31 years in the RAF.
Yeah, not content with retirement from the RAF,
Yeah.
he's now saving people from fucking house fires.
Class. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And 56, don't ever tell me that you're too old to do anything. I always get the questions, am I too old to start PTing or something? I'm 35.
You've got to be in good nick to be a firefighter.
Yeah, you have. He must
Like, that's not...
Well, he was in the RAF when he for ages. He probably keeps.
Sure, he was an engineer, but like he's obviously like a bit of a fitness nose.
Yeah, but I mean, you have time and stuff to allocate to fizz in the RAF, don't you?
Wow, that's I thought that's
awesome.
Sick. Like as you said, like there is no excuse for anyone to not. You know, people that say that they're too old to start running because they're 30.
Yeah,
fuck off. Join the fire service at 56.
Yeah, wait 26 years and then join the fire service. Yeah, most people like set in their ways, content by that age. Certainly, if you've done a 31-year stint in something else.
But does this just not exemplify what we always try and hammer home about? Build that level of fitness, you know, build your body at a young age, and then maintain it. Exactly. He's obviously kept it up his entire life.
Clearly, because he wouldn't have been able to at 56 go from a slob to the ability to pass the fire service test. There's no way.
Exactly.
Unless he followed my programs, obviously, but I mean, you never know.
but yeah, Michael Rimmer, what a hero.
Yeah, what a legend.
Setting the gold standard.
That's it. So yeah, like we said, the ability to get yourself into shape at the later age is fucking nails. So either way, whatever he's done, if he's kept it up for 50 years or if he's got into shape after being 50 plus, that's equally as impressive.
Whichever way you look at it, you know, give him the kudos.
That's it.
But yeah, I think that's it for this episode.
That's all.
Next week will be the marathon special.
Oh yeah.
We may be donning different outfits.
Yeah,
stay tuned
different
for
outfits
that.
at play. So be excited for that one. Yeah, so London Marathon is this Sunday or next Sunday. It's Saturday today. So yeah, next Sunday. So in 7 days essentially we'll be running the London Marathon. So next week will be the marathon special,
where we'll give you the insights to all of the escapades that got on during training, the run itself, and then the send following the marathon, which I'm most excited for.
There might be some snaggy dits.
Yeah, there might be a few loose dits there. That remains to be seen. But yeah, that's it.
Job done. Thanks for listening.
See you in a bit.
See you next time.